The Vikings quacked the Ducks. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Lago Vista Football Show. As the Viking offense exploded finally Friday night against Taylor, man, what a first half the Vikings had. Trip Henderson, man, he was putting up 3 or 4 game stats in one half as he threw for 329 yards, 224 of those, and 4 touchdowns were in the first half alone. Brock Morton had a huge night, 7 catches, 190 yards, 3 touchdowns. Again, most of that in the first half with 150 yards and 3 scores. Aiden Vasquez, Casson Rothenberry, they had touchdown receptions. All around, just a great offensive showing for Lago Vista. And, Coach Phillips has been very open last week about how frustrated he was with where the offense has been. So hopefully now this is that stepping stone and they can continue this trend as they get closer to district play. All right, we're going to take a break and we're going to do what we always do. And that's, of course, have the head coach of the Lago Vista Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips, on right after the break.
Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe.
Terry Bennett back here on the Lago Vista Football Show, now joined by the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips. And, Coach, we'd been talking for 2 weeks before last week about the inconsistencies of the offense, but boy, what an offensive explosion against Taylor, 48-7. That first half was absolutely dominating. Your thoughts on the game?
It felt good to get it back on track for sure. We felt like throwing the ball is something that was probably most inconsistent in the first 2 weeks, or something that we could count on the least. And that was the focus that week in practice. It was something that, even though they lined up in a 3 safety system in their secondary, which is kind of designed to stop the pass, we said we're going to throw the ball anyway. And we're hard-headed about it in practice, and really got the reps in and did some things that the quarterback was comfortable with, and got the receivers a little bit of space. And he threw the ball really well. I think we were 14 of 19 for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. So it worked. I know that Taylor has a bunch of young kids, and they struggle a little bit at times, but I thought our execution and kids being on the right page and the timing of things was so much better this past week. I hope that's something that we can continue to build on going forward.
Well, and for the talk of the offense, the defense set it up for you to begin 3 and out on the first drive, and then the very first play, as you said, you hit the big play. Brock Morton with a big game receiving-wise. This felt like this has been the best passing attack or in a game that y'all have had in a couple years.
Yeah, really, statistically and percentage-wise, I think so. I don't know when the last time we threw it for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. It felt good, and it wasn't all just deep balls or whatever. It was some timing routes, some underneath routes. Actually, the first big play by Brock was, I think, about a 7-yard curl that he just turned and housed it. And so the receivers blocking for each other downfield, and continue to work on the holistic picture of the offense, and everybody doing a job was something that was really good to see.
So y'all have a big lead at half, and so you have to play that second half. As a coach, we always talk about players, but as a coach, do you sometimes have a hard time keeping focus if it's a blowout to that proportion?
You have to set goals at halftime about what you're going to do in the second half when it's something that you feel like is in hand already, because you don't want to lose the kids' focus. I think if you just go out there and all right, guys, let's keep playing, sometimes that works. It just depends on the maturity of your team. But we set some goals for things that we wanted to do in the second half. No penalties, no turnovers. We're going to get, 4 different people the ball that haven't gotten the ball in the first half, by executing plays in a certain way. And so, we set some goals at halftime and talk to the kids about what we want to do, and go back out there, and now we have a kind of a game within the game that the kids have a reason to focus and go out there and still execute at a high level.
Well, you bring up a good point talking about, playing kids, as coaches say, emptying the bench. As a coach, how do you balance playing kids that don't get to play a lot, especially like at a wide receiver position where you still want to throw them the ball, but you also don't want to be running up the score on your opponent?
Right. I think to me, you can continue to throw the ball even if the score is lopsided, as long as you're not throwing like to me, if the route is going vertical and you're throwing it deep, like a corner route or a fade route or a go ball, I think that's kind of, that seems like run up score. But if you throw a 5 yard stop or a quick screen to the receiver screen, those are basically run plays to me. And so if the receiver is not moving when he catches the ball or he's less than 10 yards down the field, that's just offense. And there's things that you've got to work on. And I think, you want to be respectful of your opponents, and you want to teach your kids essentially good manners in that sense. And so that's kind of how I handle it. I don't completely stop throwing the ball. We want to continue to make our offense better and not waste an opportunity at a live defense on a Friday night.
Defensively, you hold Taylor to 7 points. You had them shut out at halftime. In two of your three games, you've held your opponent to one score. How frustrated was the defense at not getting get that shutout, though?
That was rough. We turn it over on offense, and then turn right around and give up a big play. And it was kind of the quarterback was scrambling around forever, and the secondary lost focus, and I guess they thought he was going to run, so they came off their man and came up to make a play, and he threw it over the top of him. So kudos to him. They had several really good players. Their quarterback was really mature and athletic, and so for him to continue to have his eyes downfield in that situation and find a guy running free, good for them. But yeah, that if we get a shutout, the kids get donuts on Saturday morning. So they were all immediately very concerned about their lack of donuts on Saturday morning. So.
Oh, so now you go. Now you take on 13-3A Division One Marion Bulldogs. They're 2-1. They lost last week to Gonzales. What do you see when you see on the film of the Bulldogs?
The first thing that stands out is definitely their size. They've got 3 offensive linemen that are bigger than anything we've seen thus far this year. And, we scrimmaged a Regents team that had some really big, good-looking kids, and these guys those are monsters that they've got. They've got a couple of big receivers. They're just thick and tall kids overall, and they do a good job. What they do offensively and defensively, the kids seem pretty comfortable in what they're doing. They're sound. So I think it's going to be a good matchup. It'll be a different battle this week than it was, say against Conley or against a Taylor who, depends a lot more on athleticism and speed. Whereas these guys are going to be a little more methodical. They do a good job throwing the ball. And then, defense is kind of a bend but don't break. They don't take a lot of chances defensively. They really just want to bottle you up and keep you in front of them.
You played them last year, but they had a different coach. This year they have Coach Joe Call, who was the offensive coordinator at Judson. So when you're approaching the same team but with a different coach, do you go back and look at any of the stuff he was doing at his other school, or are you just going off of what you see on the film of so far this year?
Yeah, we pretty much just focus on what they're doing this year. When somebody takes over a new school as a head coach, if it's their first head coaching job, what they were doing at their old school may not exactly translate to, the kids that they have here. I would say, Judson clientele and Marion clientele, although only 15 miles apart, a little different situation. So I think he's done a pretty good job of fitting his philosophy into the skill set of the kids that they have. And so we just study what we see.
Now, one of the positives of taking on Marion is they did play Gonzales last week, who is a district brethren. So you get at least a little chance to start peeking at one of your future opponents.
Yeah, that's nice to have some early film on a formidable opponent. Our district, I think is pretty solid top to bottom, really, and Gonzales is no exception. And those guys going at it in a good game where Gonzales come out on top. It's a great film. When you get a blowout game, sometimes you get kind of the vanilla offense or the vanilla defense or a lot of substitutes. When the game is close all the way to the end, you get to see the best version of themselves at that time, and so it makes for a better film to study.
Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe.
If you have any questions, thoughts, or comments for Coach Phillips or for me, you can email the show, terry@s2ssport.com. I had to feel good for Coach and the football team offensively with some of the struggles they'd had the first couple of games, and then being able to finally break out in that first half. I kind of feel like that might start the ball rolling and see some momentum. And I think that'll carry on over to this week against the Marion team. That I think is better than last year's Marion team, but still numbers 3A and all that. I think that they'll struggle athletically against the Vikings. They do have some size, though. They're a big team for a 3A school. Either way, though, I hope this offense continues that momentum that they had in the first half and really through the whole game on Taylor. They let off the gas a little bit at the end. You don't want to run the score up too much, but we'll see where it goes from there. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, this has been the Lago Vista Football Show right here on L4 Media.